and get started, because I know the race to the end of the year is not gonna slow down for us. So, does everybody have an agenda? Perfect. Wanted to thank you, Eric, for joining us. You know, if you get comfortable in that seat, you know what could happen in the future. So don't get too comfortable.
Is that your recruitment pitch?
Because we did know that we were going to have a guest come join us for the PTO data review, we went ahead and moved that to the beginning. So we are ready for you whenever you're ready for us.
Sure. All right. Well, I've got handouts. I wasn't sure what the technological setup would be, so I went ahead and went old school. So I've just got some data I want to share. I'll wait till everybody gets a copy of it, then we'll kind of go through it. The first page is just really talking points. So it just tries to summarize where we got the data, why we picked the certain data that we did, and some special things about that. But I'll wait till everybody gets a copy. And just so you know, I am the B team. I'm the backup to Michelle. She had, I think, senior parent, or not senior parent, but high school freshman parent night or whatever. Yeah. So she was wishing that it was still time for her to go to middle school parent night, but she's got to go to high school parent night. So okay, I made 13 copies, made one extra just in case, but Angie, you said at least 12 would work, so we've got some extras there. But anyway, if everybody's got their handouts there in front of them, I'm just going to kind of walk you through what we've got here. So the data that we pulled, as you'll see, is from 24-25, which is obviously a complete year. And then we've got data from 25-26. All of it's
Mute my computer and get up. That's my voice.
Yeah.
It's coming out of there. That's how it was freaking me out.
You're throwing your voice.
So sorry.
So we've got data from 24-25. Obviously, we have a complete year there. That's all out of Oracle. And we've also got data from 25-26, which is obviously not a complete year because we still have the second semester basically to go. And you'll see that on the printouts. All of the data that is illustrated applies to PTO eligible certified employees. So obviously making the difference there between what we used to have, which was sick and personal and vacation, etc., to now just capturing data that is for PTO eligible certified employees. So it's all apples to apples, if you will. We have separate data sets that you'll see for paid time off, FMLA, and for blackout days, and I'm sure that will lead to questions, but that's what the 3 pages that have been attached, that's what that's all about. We did not use 23-24 data, although we tried to pull some of it, basically because if you remember, we went live in January of 24 with Oracle, which means the first half of the year was still in B+ and Kronos. Second half of the year we've been in Oracle, and so that's why we decided not to do that. Plus, it was still the sick and personal data versus the PTO data. So at least we have one complete year and half of a complete year to show you. Blackout dates, we'll see when we get to that page. Basically, the line that illustrates blackout time really just represents the 2-for-1 application, okay? The actual PTO that was used on those blackout days is included in the PTO line. So if you've ever dug into your Oracle account and kind of looked at your absence information, you'll notice that in days where you have blackout time, you'll see PTO used, and you'll see a separate entry for the blackout time, right? Well, it's been separated on this report because of the way we pulled it. So that's why it's on 2 different pages. But you'll just have to remember that the PTO is still illustrated on the PTO page, and the blackout portion of it is on the blackout. And of course, I'm sure this will lead to questions and requests for more information as I anticipate. We are certainly willing to pull more data if need be, or if I have to compile a list of questions, I can certainly take that back if I'm not able to answer them on the spot. Because when you engage in a conversation about leave, sometimes you can't even anticipate the questions you're going to get, let alone be prepared to answer them all. So anyway, let's dive in. If we'll go to the first page here, have basically just illustrated it in terms of the whole school year, starting with the month of July and going through the month of June, because we do have some PTO eligible certified staff that are under contract in June, July. So that's why those months are illustrated. Obviously, the use amount is much smaller than the core months, which obviously occur between August and May, but that's why we do have some. And then also when you get to June, sometimes you'll have some leave that may have been taken in May, but wasn't really posted until June. So there's a little bit of that goes on in the separation from month to month, a little bit of that carryover that can happen around the end of the month, or depending upon when a certain leave is submitted based on the reason it was submitted late, those kinds of things. But, you know, the bulk of the data is still strong. So 24-25, looking at this, and one thing I did do was try to at least show or illustrate how much accumulated time was taken during the first semester, because we do have a full first semester from 24-25, and we can compare that to a full first semester from 25-26. So you can kind of see right here, just based on PTO information alone, we've got the hours illustrated, and then for purposes of just making it a little bit simpler to understand, the line below it converts it to days. So we've just taken the hours divided by 8 to come up with the number of days, depending upon whether you like to talk about hours or days. Basically means the same thing. It's just a conversion that's taking place there. So for example, first semester accumulated, we had about 19,730 days of PTO time that were taken during the first semester of 24-25, and compare that to 18,640 that were taken during the first semester of 25-26. So about a 5.5% fall off in PTO usage during the first semester. One thing that Lachelle and I talked quite a bit about was the fact that, you know, she has been in a couple of districts where they've also made the transition from sick and personal to PTO, and it's not uncommon to see a fall off in the second year of PTO usage. I think sometimes it's just, you know, people getting accustomed to new leave and thinking, oh, well, I've got a little more, the ability to use it a little bit more liberally than I have in the past, just based on the fact you don't have to provide all the extra information and kind of substantiate while you're gone. So sometimes it can lead to a little bit of an increase, which is why I still would like to see if we could get that 23-24 data and compare that to 24-25. But sometimes, as you know, systems can also be a bear. And so I can't guarantee that it would be a clean comparison, but we are still working on that behind the scenes. But regardless, it's not uncommon to see a fall off in time taken in that second year. And I think that may be one of the reasons why we're seeing it here. Maybe other people at the table have ideas as to why the leave may have dropped off a little bit, but that is one theory. Okay. Second semester is a little different. Obviously, we've got full data for 24-25. Now, when you look at 25-26, you'll see that January is almost complete, but we still have some time based on when we were pulling this information during this month. Leave that was still in progress, leave that was still scheduled, hadn't been fully processed. So that's why January looks a little bit funky. And then everything from February through May is just based on time requests that people have submitted. Obviously, not everyone submits requests ahead of time, so it's almost incomplete, if you will. But we have, you know, a certain number of hours that you can see that have been submitted for the remainder of the second semester, and it kind of falls off the further away you get from the actual month that we're in. But yeah, that's what we've got there. So if you'd like, I'll just go to the next page, and then we can go back and field the questions, or any questions on that right now that we need to address.
I have one.
Okay.
So since this page just reflects PTO,
Correct.
then it wouldn't reflect the accumulated illness leave that people would have used maybe more towards the end of the year when they ran out of PTO.
Yeah, this is strictly PTO.
Okay.
That is correct. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so if we go to the next page, and I wasn't sure which way to staple them, but you'll figure it out soon enough. Same setup with FMLA. Now you have to remember that FMLA can be a little bit tricky in that if people have PTO built up, they can use PTO while they're on FMLA leave. They can also use accumulated illness while they're on FMLA leave. So you kind of have to forget about the PTO and accumulated illness connection. Just know though that some of this could also be time taken that's unpaid. Right. So that's why it's really, if you just compare FMLA to FMLA, it's really kind of an apples to apples. But we may try to go back and pull out that extra info that says, oh, okay, so of the 21,000 hours of FMLA that were used in August of 24, maybe we can get to the point where we can say, this is how much of it was PTO. This is how much of it was accumulated illness. This is how much of it went unpaid, because it's just job protected leave. And so even if people don't have time built up, they can still take FMLA time off, right? So that's where it gets a little muddier, but it's a little more complex. We'll call it a little bit more complex. There can be a lot of layers to FMLA, of which includes unpaid time off. So it's really job protected leave that may or may not be paid for based on whether or not the person has built up time. Okay, so FMLA, you can kind of see accumulated first semester in 24-25, 113,000 hours or 14,000 days. In 25-26, that number drops to 83,000 hours or 10,000 days. So we did see a pretty significant drop in FMLA usage. Now, one thing I will point out, though, if you look at January and February, those 2 months appear as if they're going to actually bounce in the other direction. Right now, based on the time that's been entered so far for FMLA, you can see that in January 24-25, it was 13,538. We're now looking at roughly 20,000 of FMLA hours in this current month. And then the same trend for next month. And then again, the further out we go, a little bit less information is assembled based on, just not knowing whether or not a person is going to be on leave or where they're at in the process. But I think this will be a good comparison when we get to the end of 25-26 to really get 2 years of solid data compared. Because as you can see, from month to month, it's hard to really get a trend on FMLA. It really just depends on maternity time or medical time or other matters. And, those can fluctuate. So I think once we get to the end of this year, the school year, we'll have a pretty good comparison on what that looks like. And then if we go to the last page, this is the blackout information. And so basically what this is trying to illustrate is simply the 2-for-1 deduction that occurs. So when a person uses time, PTO time on a blackout day, and they have to have that 2-for-1, this is the 2 for the 1. The 1 is in PTO, the 2 is right here, but just in an effort to kind of illustrate, what that blackout penalty looks like from year to year. First semester of last year, 5,432 hours. This year, 4,949. So very similar, about an 8 to 9% drop off. Don't know what the rest of the year will hold, but that's kind of what we saw on the blackout, which I guess, kind of supports if PTO is going to come down a little bit in that second year, then the blackout time is probably going to come down. So that's the data that I do have to share. I don't think we necessarily need to go month by month, but we can if we want. But that's what I've got available for you today. As I said, I'm confident that will lead to further questions. So what questions do you have that I can answer, and what questions do you have that I can't? I'll take them back and bring them back at another meeting.
So if somebody filled out the approved exception form for blackout day,
Right.
then that would not be reflected on.
Correct. Right. The forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. That would not be reflected. This is truly the penalty.
The group of PTO eligible certified staff that's grouped here, how different is that from the bargaining?
That's that well. So when you think about PTO eligible certified staff, we think about all the calendars that we have. Obviously, it's all the 187s, it's all the 190s. So that's returning teachers, new teachers. But then we go up the ladder, and so you've got the 197s, the 210s. It would include principals because they don't have vacation, right? So obviously, there's a small portion of the data that is not applicable to, I guess, the bargaining. Right? Yeah. So yeah, that could be another effort on our part to potentially separate that information out if that is truly important to the committee.
And then I know you don't have a nice looking report from the before, but do you have a gut, since you kind of swim in this all the time, of whether it's gone up or down, or is it hard to say?
At this point, I don't even want to guess. Okay. We've got some data from January through June of 24, but it was predicated on the sick and illness versus the PTO and accumulated illness. So based on what I've seen so far, I'm not comfortable sharing any of it. It's going to take more time to really determine whether or not we did see an increase. I anticipate that we did, but just a guess on my part, just a gut feeling. That's good. Yeah. Not based on fact.
I'm wondering if, and this may not make any sense. I'm wondering if we could pull reports for unpaid time off.
Okay.
If those reports, right, like if somebody runs out of leave.
Yes, yeah, not FMLA.
Not
but-
FMLA.
Yeah, okay,
And if that data were easily pulled from the different systems, if that might be a way to get to what you're asking.
sure.
Because when you run out of leave, you're left with
That
unpaid.
would answer part of it.
That, yeah,
I'm also just curious, like, did the implementation of, like, how did the implementation of PTO in the first place change?
Would
Yes.
Subservices be able to answer that? I know like
Good question.
that's a pretty good portion of
Yeah.
who we're serving. Like, is that kind of where
It's a
you're,
good question.
like, did we have more
Maybe.
subs being asked? Like, I guess that's where I would.
Yeah, and I know that they kind of rely on the frontline piece of it, so it's, it's a different system. So it's a little bit hard to feel like you're getting congruent information, but not to say that we can't, at least ask and see what they know.
Because I think she had shared at a meeting, like, the numbers of subs that were used once PTO started. Does that make sense? Like in August versus the August before that, so that kind of gave us a clue of like,
There's gonna be some things like activities and stuff that have been
Right.
captured in there, so it won't be perfectly so similar.
There's also like sub bill rate.
Yeah.
Is that what it was called? The
Yes.
I think also looking at blackout usage prior to the data that we have here would be really helpful. Just knowing how many times people took those days.
Sure.
Specifically.
Four questions? What else?
Eric, I'm just curious, December 25, 26 compared to 24, 25, just on PTO.
PTO.
Blackout.
PTO blackout, you mean blackout? Blackout?
December this year.
There's just such a discrepancy, so that would answer some questions.
It's a good question. Yeah.
The calendar there's a lot less December this year than last year.
Like,
That makes sense.
So in
Blackout.
terms of days in
Yeah.
the first place and blackout.
You can double check that though.
that's a significant.
Oh, and the other variable is that many of us, instead of that flex time being in December, that was when all of us, I don't remember, but the canvas piece.
Yeah.
That's right,
We
but
had
then
a
the January
full-
day is the full day flex, yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember if that was high school only or if that was everybody
Yeah.
else. So that may be, like, there's always gonna be wobbles like that. That this year, instead of the flex being that last afternoon in December, it was more,
Oh,
okay.
it was all full day in January,
Okay. Oh, that's,
so.
that could be a little bit hard. Yeah, you're right, okay.
Although, I just feel like that would have made the numbers flip,
It would, yeah,
right?
Not.
yes,
Because there wasn't flexibility after.
Yeah, that's true.
Use my calendar skills for this.
Yeah, good thing you're on all those committees.
But I'll resume.
maybe bigger than just the data.
Okay.
Just want to make sure that we all have a shared understanding of what the purpose of the blackout is. I think, like, obviously keeping teachers in classrooms is a shared interest, not overwhelming the subsystem is a shared interest. Are there things that we maybe aren't thinking about as to why the district thinks that blackout days are important and values that as part of it?
Yeah, yes, in here, I don't know what the original intent was, but it seems like most of the blackout days are up against breaks. Right, which would be popular ones that people would want to take, to extend those breaks to where it would be a large number of teachers that may take those if they weren't blackout days, maybe, to try and prevent that.
They were harder to fill jobs. From a subservices perspective, they were harder to fill because they were back.
What volume and
Yeah.
timing.
December had 4 things. Sorry, I had to find that.
Gotcha.
Sorry. Those were tacking off of Thanksgiving. The
Oh.
2 after Thanksgiving, the Tuesday, and then the Thursday, Friday.
Okay. I apologize for making you back up on this one.
Yeah, which page?
But on all of the pages at the bottom, it says versus 24-25.
Yeah.
Is that just comparing? the
Just first semester.
Okay, and I-
First semester, yeah. I tried to line it up
Yeah.
under first semester, because we don't have a full
Right.
second semester. So, but once we get there, it'll be much easier just to fill in the blanks and see how we did as a whole school year. Sometimes it gets a little, it's not a true feel for how it really went. Feel better getting 2 full years, 24 months.
Thank you so much to you and everyone.
Hey, Mercedes,
Visit with
and our,
Mom.
I appreciate that. Thank you, man. I will say Mercedes in our department, talk to that kid, she is. If you love X looks up, X look up, Z look up, V look up, concatenate, she's your person. Yeah, she can teach you all day about Excel. It's things that I have to watch a quick tutorial on, she just has it. It's great. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I'll pass it on. She's been super helpful. And it's all coming out of Oracle, so it's even harder. I will certainly work on getting some answers to these questions, as many as we can. I can share them at the next meeting or just pass it on and see how it goes.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank
glad to help.
you.
Good to see you guys.
Well, I went ahead and kept the annual review items on the agenda, just as a reminder. We've only got one more of those, so I thought we would, maybe not decide today, but put on the list of things that need to be decided. Retirement insurance benefit plan and VERT review item. It says in the bylaws, or in the agreement rather, that we'll do that in March. So we have 2 options. 3-3, which I believe we were gonna do our letters, and I remember thinking there was potential, and later we'll talk about, potentially looking at feedback from our pilot conferences on the 3rd. And then the only other professional council meeting we have scheduled in March is the 31st. So we can kick that down the line a little bit in making that decision, but we got 2 options. Okay.
Michelle too,
Yeah.
and see where they're at on
Yeah.
those things and see which.
Yeah, I think I don't think we have a preference over which one. I didn't reprint our committee list because I printed it, I think, 12 times. I made one correction. I had Melissa Thomas at Harmony and she's at Heartland, and those are different places. So if you see anything else on there that's wrong, I don't think there were any other corrections.
Just for your reference, I did go in. Crazy. And then I leave that. Show me. And I went in that. Sure, doc.
Okay. Perfect. I did fail to put appraisal committee on the committee updates, but I'll go ahead and just share very quickly our last appraisal committee meeting. I was actually not at, but the summary that I had, and Rick, you're on appraisal. Yes, yeah, it's like, yes, you're definitely on appraisal, so feel free to add anything or correct anything. It's like trying to keep track of all the committees, apologies. The committee, I think, maybe came to consensus that in terms of the goal for appraisal, that should be tied to the rubric of the IPP. don't think that's like been like set in stone, but it sounded like the committee kind of came to that consensus. And then there was conversation about how we engage our career educators who are in that 3-year cycle, how we engage them in appraisal throughout the 3 years, rather than it feeling like you do stuff the 3rd year and then you're off. Because in reality, it's a cycle of continuous like reflection. There were no like decisions made, it was just some conversation. So, was there anything that and that meeting's been a bit ago?
Yes, no, I have no to add to that.
Okay. For benefits, we got, I think I mentioned previously, we're looking at bids for our medical insurance, which is just like a routine thing that we do. 2027 would be the next opportunity to either stay with Blue Cross Blue Shield or, change providers. No additional information, just wanted people to know that that's a routine thing that we do. And then I wanted to just highlight again, that starting in January, our district and board are investing an additional $99 a month up to $318 a month for every employee who is taking the district insurance. And that was related to our last agreement where the district absorbed the increases in medical insurance premiums. So I just think it's important for people to understand because it's easy to overlook. My medical insurance is the same, my paycheck isn't impacted by that, but in fact, that is an increased investment.
Yeah, like,
No, I was looking more just from like the individual person's point of view. The 318 amount is going to be somebody with a family,
Right.
Maybe a higher tier insurance. The 99 was a SpiraCare individual plan. I think the individual HSA, which is probably the most common, that was like 101 additional a month. But that is, I think I remember in one of the presentations I attended recently, it was the bond presentation. The number 15 million is sticking in my head.
That's why I was
I
asking.
think the last 7 years that the district has absorbed the insurance increases has equaled 15 million.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we just had it.
There you go.
That's
See?
the number I was trying to think of.
So, I know that often we, as individuals, judge raises by like how much of a difference there is in the take-home pay, which is valid. But it is a little bigger. It is a little more complicated, I should say, when we're talking about kind of from that investment. Conferences, I think we decided last time that we drafted some charges. And I put those on the agenda, or just kept those on the agenda. But we just needed some more think time on those charges. So I'll be quiet so you can read those again. A question I've been receiving quite a bit is if there were to be changes proposed to conferences, substantial changes or tweaks or however, that impacted the calendar, because this came up in calendar committee. The earliest that we would see those changes occur, and help me out,
Yeah, we got this, yeah.
would be the 27-28 school year.
Yes, because ultimately, recommendation of the conference committee would have to get to January. in order-
27.
January of 27, but then be able to adjust the calendar.
which would be a adjustment of a calendar that's
That's
already been published.
Published, so it'd be editing a calendar. So like, for example, if we, it's happening, but if we wanted to change for next year, we would. Now, we're meeting with the calendar committee started yesterday, we'd be able to flesh that out through the spring here and make that a part of the agreement next year. And it would again, at this point, be adjusting the calendar that's published because the 27 calendar we approved last year, so it's already published, but we've done that.
Do we have to publish 2 years out for the calendar, or is that just something we do?
Like, if we know, like, the committee, like, the work has been like, let's make some change. Is it possible to just do one calendar and not have to change something that's already been published?
I will tell you that happened during COVID, actually, where we didn't have a calendar completed
I think I made
2 years out, and we heard about it from community and staff and everyone. Because
I have already heard about the calendar for 20. I've already had people asking me, employees asking me for the calendar for 27, 28. I'm not saying my email's flooded. But that question has been posed. already.
Community is more because people want to know when their kid's graduation is 2 years from now, and all those huge events that they plan more than a year out. So it was not received well. And really, that wasn't been intentional. I think it was because of COVID, and actually some things that piled up but it wasn't received well by the community or staff.
That's kind of, it's just. It's been done, so that's the expectation. I would maybe then suggest for the 27, 28 calendar, whichever one this would affect.
27, 28.
27, 28 is to have an asterisk that it is a draft. Or like subject to change, or like add some sort of language there. Because like, if we do have it, like, in the past, it has been a constant, we can't change conferences because we have a calendar. And then calendars say, well, we can't change because we don't have information from conferences. So like, there has to be a stop somewhere, like, we can't just keep going back.
But we've made changes.
Yeah.
Made changes to the.
It's possible.
Well, I mean, we've
yeah.
made changes to this year's published calendar. but-
Right.
We
Yeah.
can, I mean,
And I think even in the calendar committee, conferences
Yes.
came up.
yeah.
And so that I think we are the snake chasing the tail. I don't know what that
Right, yeah.
is, whatever. Like, I think that has been
And it-
interrupted.
it would have to go through the whole process. And to be honest with you, the big events that people really want to 2 years out, break, graduation, conferences wouldn't necessarily affect those, so I think those changes wouldn't. Maybe.
Anything else in the charges? Because I think our intent was to bless them today. Because we're halfway through the 25-26 academic year and we have a charge. So we probably need to get a rolling on that. Some of the conference committee would like direction on what they're supposed to be doing, which is understandable.
I think it's part of the first bullet as far as getting feedback. We've worked on a survey and minor tweaks perhaps, but conferences coming up, timing will be important for that. There's a lot going on. Data collection. Still.
What do you guys think for the parenting, the parent? We also talked about sending that.
I think that would be, depending on the timeline, that would be ideal if it was not months. This is,
Yeah.
but also you don't want to send too many surveys out to
Yeah,
the community.
That's
Just
already
gathering
ongoing.
this.
I don't know how long.
It's the question.
There might have to be some prioritization.
I mean, we had sent it to senior leadership, right? Like, so that was kind of, maybe it's a pick whichever questions you feel are applicable. If it's not being sent out to the district survey, that's in what, typically April? Is that right? So like, that kind of, already, we can't meet the charge for this year to examine data by the end of the school year if we're not getting data back before April. So like, yeah, it's just pushing.
Well, you would only need ultimately the recommendation back by January, by next January. You'd have data
So it
by
puts,
the end
it
of the
puts
year.
the work for summer and semester one of next
But
year.
there's
to-
not a parent survey semester one generally.
No, but we would have to use this year, like this district survey, which is fine. It just, that means the 26-27 academic year, like establishing the plan and timeline, that's semester one. Like all of that would have to be completed by semester one, because it would have to be ready for January. Which is fine if that's what the, like, the committee, I mean, we can, I think, we're gonna push the committee first, like,
We would-
frequent of meetings if we can plan ahead of time and stuff like that.
we would have numbers later.
Yeah.
When's the district survey? April.
We have one.
She can do the questions. Remember. They can get the same thing. When we took the. surveys,
Like, would you mind reaching out to Becky and CCing Julia, and that way we can, I think if we have answers, then we can do the plans we need to do.
Yeah.
It's just the not knowing, I think, just makes it harder to kind of get to the end goal. The end goal, of course, not necessarily being making changes or not making changes, but doing the review to decide if those changes are necessary. Because sometimes, listening to people's gut reactions in the moment, sometimes those are accurate, sometimes they're not. And I think having that additional information would help us figure that out.
I'll reach out to her. About it.
Perfect. Anything else on the charges? And Julia, thank you for bringing up the trouble spots, because unless we do that, we won't be able to get over them. That we see as maybe being a challenge or we want to adjust. All right. Extracurricular academic support. We currently have 12 new proposals. Proposals for modifications or additions to the extracurricular academic support schedule are due February 12th. In addition to those 12 that we currently have, we have 6, I'm going to call them old proposals that haven't been modified. We had some old proposals that have been resubmitted with just updated information. So 6 that haven't been modified, so a total of 18 so far. So our committee definitely has some work to do ahead of them. And in a year that budget is a challenge, that is going to continue to be a challenge. But it's important that we have the process and that we can get feedback on what modifications people want. We currently have the 18th is scheduled, and then we have hold. We have a hold on the dates, the 3rd, the 11th, and the 25th of March that is coming out tomorrow. I haven't got the email out yet. If we don't need all of those dates, we will not use them. But just since we have so many proposals, we want to get a few more dates. ECAS meets at 7 a.m. on Teams, and we have a full committee, despite that great timing. Anything on that? Calendar, we met yesterday. Lynn, anything you want to start off? So you have a little variety of voice here besides
Yeah.
me. Besides me talking to you all.
No, it's traditionally the first one in January. Bulk of the time, we did introductions, we had a few new members on the committee, did introductions. Bulk of the time was spent, Jenna Cooter kind of went over the draft professional learning plan for next year, shared that with the committee, and also had a couple different versions. She went through 6 and
Version
7.
6 and version 7.
So apparently 1 through 5 didn't make the cut, so.
And there might have been 8, 9, who knows?
Yeah, so 6 and 7 just had a very slight difference. I don't know.
Yeah, there were 2 spring dates that were flipped.
But yeah, so just for consideration, I think we'll circle back, the 24th meeting, to look at that. At that time, I'm working with graphics and there to get a draft calendar for the 7/28 put together for us to make it start. We also talked about the fact that this year's calendar was rather difficult because of the early day and beginning of the year, one break and everything. So really excited that it's back all the way to May 31st, as it can be. Next year, so that next year. This year.
And the committee members are all listed on the professional council website. Committee members have been asked to give feedback, to get feedback. But we've also asked them not to email out like the drafts, just because that causes confusion. Somebody sees a draft and like, oh, this is the professional, it just causes a lot of confusion. So if anybody has particular interest in giving feedback, just reach out to those committee members. And those conversations, I think, can be rich. But we just know sometimes that when there are multiple versions of the same document out in the ether, that causes some confusion. Anything else on calendar? All right. Last time we talked about we don't normally get updates in the variance committee, but we did talk a little bit about the conference pilots we were saying OATC.
Yeah.
But now some of those programs are not at OATC. Yeah, the opposite. So I'm not quite sure how to refer to them now, because I think some of the programs are still at OATC.
Yes.
The 2-year.
Yeah, the 2-year academies. 2-year program. 2-year, no, they call it academies now. Yeah.
2-year, 4-year.
2-year and 4-year. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It is getting out there.
Well, yeah, I remember the discussion during the PD day was that we were using whichever one is both now,
Yeah.
but I thought they had landed on purpose. But I
Yeah,
get you.
no, they landed on academies. But either way, we had those 2 pilots affecting conferences because while Mill Creek and the 2-year academies do have a lot of differences, both are unique in a lot of ways. So I think that the question I have for you all would be, we talked about last time how it might be helpful to have some parent, guardian, and family feedback regarding those conferences. And since conferences are coming up, this might be a good time to do it. And I've shared that with both Mill Creek and the 2-year academies facilitators. And I think they were just wondering, do you have anything in particular that you're wanting? Because sometimes those families aren't necessarily super responsive to a survey. So their thought was asking them when they're having the conferences more like, so how is this format for you? So that would not lead to data that would be necessarily easily put in a table.
I wonder if even just a couple questions with something they could quickly mark while they're at the conversation, where they can fill this out and they
Like
go
a
right back to
physical
the teacher.
teacher.
Yeah, 'cause I think asking the questions, to your point, I don't assemble that data too, but maybe just a couple
Or even
questions.
the
that they
educator, if they want to have it as a verbal conversation, the educator.
They could
can
read it
take
and mark it
notes
down, yeah.
On that paper.
That way it's recorded in a common format, so you could get some.
Yeah.
data that can be put into a
Okay.
sort of readable format.
So something like, would you support continuing
Yeah. You
this
prefer-
for this format?
Yes.
Like some basic questions like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe something like, do you see, are there any challenges with this?
Mhm.
If there are challenges to this change? There- to this change
So that one would be
From what it
more,
was.
yeah, that'd be more qualitative data.
Yeah,
Okay.
But I think too, I mean, ultimately, in my mind, ultimately, we want to know whether they like the new form or the old format, right? So it may be as simple as that too,
Mhm.
you know,
Okay.
you prefer the form of conferences or you prefer.
Okay.
And that may be as simple as that, 'cause ultimately, that's what we want. And then if I say I prefer the old, then it may be why.
Mhm.
And then that's maybe narrative to put along with the feedback from that question.
Okay. That I think will be very helpful.
Do you feel like those staff members would feel open to doing that?
In the,
Conversations?
yeah, in the email exchanges and phone calls that I've had, with Nick and Sarah, they've been very open to it. I just think they were like, they want to make sure that whatever data they collect is data that would be helpful to us. Otherwise, it's an exercise in futility. So just getting a little more was helpful. So I think we now
I mean,
have.
that's a good point, so to help those teachers make it as simple as possible.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then just have like a spot for
Yeah.
feedback if they want to provide it,
Okay.
not over.
Yeah. And that way it doesn't take them very long. Put in a lot of
Feel like
extra
they're
effort, yeah,
doing
like
like
they're,
Yeah.
like they're coaching someone through the
A
survey.
questionnaire.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. I think it's so neat. All right. Our last item on the agenda is just kind of our cycle of review. I will remind you, because I did not print it, that I have provided you before a printed copy of this. That was kind of the, oh, no, not that. I don't have my printed copy of I cleaned out my binder. I think I did too good of a job. It is linked under current suggestions, but I thought I had a hard copy of it with me, but I do not.
Yeah.
Yes, it had some red font on it. Yeah, I don't need it, but yeah, in case you're wondering, it's like, I did a great job printing that up. So the reason I mention that particular document is that some of the suggestions that people sent me on, hey, I noticed this discrepancy, were already in that document. So like our vision, going from students prepared for their future to our future is their future. Those were really good suggestions, but they're already captured in there. So that's why you don't see those on this next piece of paper that I'm giving you. I'm just trying to keep everything together in one document, so apologies for the bigness. I've learned that if things are all in different documents, sometimes that. So, the more that I kind of start looking at discrepancies and inconsistencies, the more that I think that figuring out a way to continue this would be very valuable. But I also want to acknowledge that we're about ready to hit the like hardcore negotiations time. So we might pause on this, but I would encourage us to come back to this next year if we're going to pause. Because I found some pretty significant differences. One that isn't actually scheduled for now, but I thought I'd put it on here. So what we agreed on for this meeting is that second row. I did want to point out that because I can't follow my own directions, I did go over GBOA, which is why you see a couple of differences in GBOA that I noted. And I just wanted to kind of point that out so that, you know, people like Chris who are really good with language. The word not is in one document, like the board doc, but it's not in the agreement or vice versa. And the word not is a really important word. Yeah, so we don't have to talk about that one today, but I wanted to at least get that on the radar. And then the one that's on the back, we already have addressed. It was the difference between the board docs and the agreement, and I think Clint, you must have taken care of that because it's changed in the board doc, so. But to focus on what we're supposed to focus on today, get to there. Chris brought in the first item before the GBA that is bolded was Chris's suggestion, and it's very editorial, so nothing substantive, but just the fact that throughout the agreement and the board docs, we refer to our own district in different ways. I don't think it is worth our time as a body to be looking at every single one of them. But I would be happy if this body has a preference of doing what I did with that document I couldn't find, the red, doing that same kind of a thing. Or we can say it doesn't matter, that it refers to our district as USD Tier 33 or Olathe Public Schools. Like, we don't care that that's different. So whatever you all think, I'm happy to move forward on. But that was a good lawyer eye there.
It's impotent in this.
Yeah.
They really, legally, it really does. Just from a solid.
Yeah.
But I'm more than happy to go through there, Angie. You know, the kind of, it wouldn't be a lot cutting or a fine.
You kind of note what policies there are. Okay.
So I stopped about, at GBOA, and then I happened to glance a couple pages later, I saw something else. I thought, I don't want to do, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I'll start.
Yeah.
Getting obsessed, a bit, but yeah.
For GBA, the only other change that I noticed, and I really noticed our district is leaning into the vision. The mission isn't super referred to, but the most recent version of the mission I could find in the student code of conduct for this year was slightly different than the mission that's in our agreement, and I think it was just the in an ever-changing world. I believe it was just the end of it. I don't see as part of the strategic planning committee conversation about changing the mission. That hasn't been brought up. So I think that would probably just be more of an editorial, maybe when we were copying and pasting the mission, we forgot the background.
Andy, too, just from a process perspective, for example, like the grievance one that is fixed now. Do we note that somewhere so we kind of keep track of?
So yeah,
that one
yeah,
being
there's
shared?
definitely,
Yeah.
there's some more here that indicate that whatever our processes are to make sure that all the changes in the agreement end up in the board docs.
Right,
That process, I don't think is where we want it yet.
right.
Um,
But like for that one that was done, it has been changed. So do we, yeah, we noted on here that.
okay,
You see what
yeah,
I'm saying? So that we
Yeah.
don't keep going back to that when one of us
Yeah.
forgets that. we already changed
I got
that.
you. My thought was that document that had all the red, that if you all identified, these are the ones that are okay to just dump on that document, I could just keep adding them to that.
Okay,
And at the end,
so it's basically move it from.
From
this
here
document
to there.
this document. Yeah.
but I'm open to other ideas. But this is kind of the brain dump.
Mhm.
So like the changing, like the learning and reporting on this document.
Yeah,
those
the-
changes we've made.
They haven't been made because we haven't ratified.
Right,
But so that we would have both our substantial changes, whatever they end up being, and then we would have one document of like editorial changes.
You're essentially building a giant consent agenda.
Yes.
yeah. So like in that case, the grievance one, it was the board docs needed to change. Do that,
Right.
so we did that,
Mhm.
so it's done. So I don't wanna lose, so.
Like a difference between board docs and the agreement? Is that what you're kind of saying?
Yeah, or even that, so I don't know, some list somewhere, even been changed, it's no longer an issue. But where those ones that have to be ratified, maybe don't go over there until
Yeah.
maybe this is 2 columns and one of them is things that we think the agreement needs to change and one is things that we think board docs needs to change, because it seems like those processes are slightly different.
So there, to make that even muddier, there are also places where both are wrong.
Sure.
And this is an example
Yeah.
of that.
Right. Yeah.
Because it seems like, because our process to change the agreement can be this document, but yes, right. This body doesn't touch board docs directly.
Indirectly for only some policies in
Correct.
the agreement, yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, but we should be, but I mean, like, make
Right.
that change happen, happens outside. of this.
Like going back to that, that was easy because part of the agreement that was ratified by the board.
Right,
It's
it
just-
just didn't get.
It just needs change. There's no action. needed to be done.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so trying to figure out how to label those columns. Change agreement, board docs, incorrect. Okay, so to clarify, the GBA that we just spoke about the mission would not be board docs is incorrect. It would be, I noticed that the mission was different in the student code of conduct than it is on board docs and our agreements. So in this case, it would be a change in the agreement.
Mhm.
To match, I was just trying, because I couldn't find
Yeah.
the mission statement anywhere else on our website. It wasn't on like the strategic plan. The old one that we're still, it's not in there at all.
There's a lot of places.
Yeah. I very well may have changed that. I'm not even hate to admit this on tape here.
So I'm not getting caught up in that.
It's always the. Yeah, I kind of, and then kind of what we discussed on the grievance policy. But I went back and saw what professional counsel had we'd agreed to the, board ratify, that was a change and it just, I had let Barb Beam know that. So so kind of going back to GBOA, the not, which is important, I can go back and see what exactly, it could very well be that what the language that was ratified, if you will, and see maybe that just didn't get to Barb or
Yeah,
whatever.
Yeah,
So
'cause
that could be.
that one I don't think had a date on the update,
Mhm.
or the update dates were different,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
That one I think will be a
Yeah.
little bit more confusing, so we can definitely, we'll let you tackle that.
Okay.
I'm wondering if maybe, just so that we can make sure we're all in alignment, maybe we could chat with the strategic plan committee about like, hey, this mission statement.
Yeah.
Like, are we gonna include that? Not, it doesn't seem to be driving a lot of that so far. Yeah. For the GBI and GBK, I think, Chris, these are probably easy ones, because I think you remember when we negotiated the suspension? And so on board docs, it still says that they're gonna sunset.
Yeah, okay.
So the agreement is fine. So I'll just kind of put that in your wheelhouse.
Just pick up.
Yeah. And then, I believe for GBL, it's probably similar, non-renewal being hyphenated versus not being hyphenated, whatever. But there was a place in both board docs and the agreement where it says burden or proof. And I think it means
Should be
burden
not.
of proof,
Yeah.
And then one place that said expect instead of accept.
Okay.
So sorry, going back
Yeah.
to the 2 columns there talked about with.
Yeah.
Change. I just want to make sure that I keep track of it all. Once it's complete, in that,
Yeah.
if there's a check mark in there, can we? Set a check. Just so, or we could remove it, I guess, but at least that would show us what we've got
Yeah.
done.
Okay.
Because if we just leave it there with just a check mark,
Right.
2 months down the road, we go back. We do
that
this?
get addressed
Did
or
we do
not?
this?
Yeah.
And Yeah, or
Okay,
indicate somehow that it's been completed, it's been changed. One, it shows that we've made progress.
Yeah.
But two, we don't forget that, oh, we already changed that.
okay.
I might be the only one that would forget that, but I would forget that.
I don't. have one, so I appreciate taking that. Become efficient.
However, we want to indicate.
Okay, I will work on that. So I think the only other one, and I apologize, I did not bold the last GBOC, the very last chunk. I meant to bold all of the policies. There's just a correction on where a worksheet is. So that one is just a correction, an editorial correction. So I'm thinking if you all are okay with it, I will just move that to the document that Laura mentioned to get it off of here. Is that okay? Okay. And then lastly, there are references to professional files, content list in the virtual file. And that is GBB under questions. And when I read that, I was like, huh, I'm kind of wondering what that means. I'm guessing it means frontline, not that I'm suggesting we would put the word frontline in our agreement. But a larger question, maybe to kind of go to HR, is do we all know what the professional files, content list, and the virtual files mean? Or is it just the ONEA president?
Yeah, that definitely seems like we want to reference frontline, but what if we don't use frontline, then we have to go back and change it, so it seems like it was just electronic mail. You know?
Yeah.
When that was made.
GBB.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, sorry, but I was just curious if that was.
Next, I think at one point we also stopped updating the dates,
There are no dates.
Oh,
which I understand why we did that. But those dates have actually helped.
yeah,
Yep, there are no dates on that one. Now, sometimes the board docs does still have a date.
yeah. Well, I was just curious because it's kind of a Dr. Sig question, but I really think that would seem to be. Yeah, just in case we change the program every whatever, or even the program is renamed by the publisher.
Absolutely.
Or Frontline. So
Yeah.
We started with a.
Yeah,
We used to have.
yes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about that could be problematic
Yeah.
when we start changing programs.
like, I think if that's referring to frontline, then I'm making the connection. If that's referring
Right.
to something else, and I'm not making the connection, I'm gonna guess there are
Yeah.
probably others who are also not making
Yeah, there's no date on board docs.
it. Okay,
Well, there's some stuff behind the scenes. I could, we can go and log, Barb can go up and see what that's, yeah. I'll do some sleuthing there.
I know that gets into the weeds and some of us nerds love this stuff. And not so much others, so be thinking about, I do think this is worth time, but continue thinking about how moving forward this makes sense. We do have a policy committee that could get together and continue this work, probably not this semester with everything else. But if we knew ahead of time that we want to pull this out, but also the policy committee is a smaller group. So generally, these are kind of sticky things. So sometimes having the hive mind is helpful. Okay. All right, we got letter exchange set up for February 24th. Our meeting to review the letters is the 3rd of March. You see the rest of the negotiation meetings for quarter listed on your agenda. Clint, I think you already had that last date sent out, so that should be on our calendars. Yeah. Oh. Anything else for the good of the cause?
Was it last year that you exchanged on Valentine's Day?
I think it might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, We'll be back at the Ed Center, I believe.
Yes, I believe so.
Hmm.
Oh,